Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. We're back on this Monday after week one of the NFL season, week two of college football. A lot to go over. It was a tough weekend for you, Korea. Some plays that were brutal the way it lost, and some that never had a chance from the start. Um, Obviously, it happened. So, what were your takeaways from your plays this past weekend?
Main takeaway is that I'm ready for college basketball season. That is my main takeaway from this weekend. Colorado, Nebraska. I mean, it was a legacy push, obviously, if you saw that last catch, but the other two missed field goals make this even worse because obviously that should have gone over with how this first half gone. Obviously, Colorado was never the play for that first half. I thought their offense was going to do a little more, but their defense, Nebraska's defensive line, was just having a field day in the trenches. They were winning all the battles. Shador after the game, he blamed his whole offensive line. And yes, you can blame the offensive line to an extent. At some point, you got to make some plays out of something. If you know, obviously they're going to bring pressure, on second and third down all the time. You got to have that ball out quick. So you got to have a play for that. So I feel like, part of it is on the O-line, but part of it, is on, Sanders, not being able to adapt in that, in that environment. But obviously that was a push right there. So, we'll take it, as pretty much the only, I guess, winner. App State was always a bad look from the start. Clemson found an offense. Good for them. They're not winning the ACC. Liberty, they literally had to come back against the worst team, I'd say, in New Mexico State, and they won, but they didn't even cover the spread. So, and then I don't even want to talk about yesterday. I really, honestly don't even want to talk about yesterday because, oh my God, yesterday was so bad. Yesterday, the Raiders, the Titans, and then the Panthers. Sorry, I'm getting a call. I will be right back, but yeah, just a bad weekend for me.
Yeah, definitely tough. Obviously, it happens. The Titans was obviously brutal with the way that it lost, and then the Panthers never really had a chance. Obviously, they're down huge. So I'll just go over my plays. Tough. It was a 1-2 day for me on Saturday. The Texas-Michigan first half under was brutal. It was 17-3, looking like it was going to hook under until Michigan. I think Michigan fumbled with a Michigan tight end fumbled on his own without being touched with a minute or two left in the half, or 2 or 3 minutes left in the half. And that gave Texas the field position, I think, basically on the other side of the field, and they turned that into a touchdown. So it was looking good because even if Michigan didn't do anything, they were still going to have to punt the ball, to the other end of the field. And I think time would have run out at that point. So that was a brutal fumble for the timing of that, for the first half to go over by that in that game. The Tulane game was pretty much going over the whole way. I thought that Kansas City defense would show up a little bit against the Tulane's quarterback, but they get led up over 340 passing yards to the Tulane passing offense. So I'm looking forward to that game on Friday between Kansas State and Arizona and see how that plays out. The Baylor play, I got lucky with. I can fully say that. It was looking like a terrible play early. I liked Finn, their quarterback, but he was not using his mobility to the way that I thought he would early in the game. And I think they were down, it was 20-0 early, or 23-0, something like that. And then Cam Rising got hurt, and so the Utah offense didn't. I don't think they scored a point.
What a surprise! Cam Rising gets hurt.
Yeah, so they didn't score a single point in the second half. So they won 20. They still won 23-12. So that was lucky, but it still hit. And then Sunday, the Colts they were right there. I did get a little bit lucky because they scored, on the last drive to cut the deficit to 2. But at the same time, Stroud had 2 picks called back, and one of them resulted in a touchdown. So it kind of went both ways with, getting a little bit lucky. But I was still impressed by Anthony Richardson overall in the Colts offense. I still think they're going to be right there, in that division. I do worry a little bit about their secondary, which I talked about I talked about when I went over the play in the offseason that was my big concern was their secondary. So that is my worry. But I think that their offense is going to be, really good all season. The Seahawks was one of being a push. I thought when they were up by 13 that they were going to hold that lead and they were going to cover the spread. But then, Bo Nix led the drive with like a few minutes left to bringing them within 26-20. And then obviously that was the final there. And then the Lions was looking really good when they were up 17-3. And then the Rams go on a 17-0 run and then overtime, and they basically run the ball down the throat to the Rams defense on that overtime drive to score a touchdown and win by 6. So I think I was 3-1. So basically even weekend for me, which obviously we take. And I know, you'll bounce back, this week and then next weekend obviously it's still early in every season, still a lot to learn, take away from and all that. So obviously we'll move on and adjust and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for you, you mentioned that Texas-Michigan game. That was a tough loss. That was a tough loss. I didn't really expect Michigan's defense to, I guess, not be at that same level of Texas's offense. But Quinn Ewers, wow, he looks really, really dialed so far. He's making some really good throws against a good Michigan defense on the road. I think he's really, padding up his Heisman resume as well. So, but obviously tough under as well for you. Obviously, Michigan's offense didn't really do much, but, we were just more hoping Michigan's defense would do enough. And that was a tough break for you. You mentioned that K-State game as well. Obviously just offense. Tulane's pretty much offense helped Tulane's offense kept them in that game. That's, I guess, the reason why this game went over. Obviously, I thought, K-State was probably going to, rely more on their defense, but they had to rely more on their offense. Obviously with with Tulane, making that an interesting game. And obviously you mentioned this should be a really good game on Friday between Arizona and K-State, even though it's not a technical Big 12 matchup. It pretty much, I would count it as, because it's two top 25 teams in the Big 10. Big 12. You can arguably say those are the top two teams right now with how OK State looked over the weekend. And, obviously I'm going to get into how Utah is now without Cam Rising potentially. You could argue that, that could be for the Big 12 title, which is just, or the Big 12 lead, early on in the season. But obviously as well, Baylor, Cam Rising gets hurt at halftime, and, all of the Utah minus 14.5 bettors were, thinking, oh, it's game over. Cam Rising, they still have him, but Cam Rising gets hurt, and Baylor, obviously, like I said, there's that potential for the back door, and there it was, obviously open. And, it wasn't the cleanest of plays, obviously, with just how Baylor looked, but obviously, we will take that as well. And then heading into Sunday, obviously the Colts Texans game. Wow, what a game that was! That was a fun game to watch. Obviously with all the back and forth, that slip up of the back foot from A-Rich to just absolutely just dial that throw all the way to Alec Pierce. What a throw that was. Colts end up obviously covering, but unfortunately, missing out on the money line right there, obviously losing by 2. So that was a good win. That was a good look on the spread, but unfortunate on the money line there. And then Seahawks, I feel like that should have been a cash for you. Obviously, I mentioned, I think, that line opened around like 4.5, and, that was growing and growing. So if you got it early, congratulations. But if you got it, around that 6 or 6.5, well, sorry, that's tough luck. But, that's pretty much how, maybe football works sometimes. The more steam goes in one direction, more opportunity for a backdoor potentially. It was 26-13, so obviously the Seahawks were, in control, but then obviously a late touchdown from Bo Nix, obviously gave that the push potential, and obviously got a little sweaty, but the Seahawks obviously got the win, obviously right by 6. And then same for the Lions. Obviously it was very sweaty. Obviously didn't need to be. Obviously they were up big 17-3. Obviously all the Lions money line and minus spread bettors were, turned off the TV, and all of a sudden you turn back on and it's the Lions are down, and you're thinking, oh, what happened here? And obviously they drive, get that game tying field goal before getting the win in overtime with David Montgomery just running it in, using their ground game to pretty much just beat the Rams in the trenches. I think that's what the Lions are going to be doing a lot this season, when it gets to those later, quarters and those kind of, games where it's a lot closer. I think the Lions probably use their ground game and their offensive line to use that to their advantage. Obviously, just driving the field, getting 6, ending the game. Obviously, Lions getting the win, covering the 4.5 for you. So good weekend for you. Unfortunately, I don't want to talk about football. you don't want me to rant about the NFL this weekend, because I could go on a monologue about how the Raiders, how Antonio Pierce should not have a head coaching job. I can go on about how the Titans lost to a team that didn't score a single offensive touchdown. I can go on about how the Panthers might be the worst team I've ever seen in football. I can go on and on and on about that. But we're going to continue on to this Monday here. New day, obviously new week. And here's my one play for tonight. I'm just taking the Jets on the spread here. I got it way at 5.5 a few days ago. I know this crept down to 4. I don't really like it at that 4. I would maybe buy it up half a point to 4.5 here. So that's what I'm doing at 4.5. That's what I'm giving out here. Did you know, Ari, that in the Niners and Brock Purdy's, because Brock Purdy didn't start one game, but in Brock Purdy's and the Niners' last 6 home games, that's 6 home games, they haven't covered a spread. And that's fun. That's ironic. Like, the last 6 games. And you got to think, like, okay, what was the last home game they played? That was the NFC Championship game. They were 7.5-point favorites, won by 3. The game before that was the divisional round against the Packers. They were 10.5-point favorites. I think they won by 3 as well. The week before that, final week of the season, against the Rams, obviously it's Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold. They were 5.5-point favorites. They lose outright. Before that, Baltimore, they were slight favorites. They lose outright. The Seahawks, I think they were 13.5-point dogs. They lost by 12. You see where I'm going with this? You go all the way back, right? The last 6 home games for Brock Purdy and the Niners, including Kyle Shanahan, they haven't even covered a spread, right? And you have this Jets team that obviously I think could sneakily win this game. A lot of people have been putting the Jets or plus 4.5, Jets money line. I've been seeing that all over Twitter. I've been seeing it all over sports Twitter and sports betting everywhere. But I'm just taking the spread here. I think the Niners do win this game. Like I said, even with all the controversy with Brandon Ayuk this offseason, and his delay into the team, along with Trent Williams. When you look at the Niners healthy, look, it's a great offensive line that has a good run game, obviously, with Christian McCaffrey. You have Brock Purdy, who can use his feet, and he has all these skill players around him, like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who can make plays. And then obviously we've known about the Niners defense for years, but I think that this game is going to be close. I also like the under here. I know it's probably going to be low scoring. You have 2 teams that are probably going to be using a lot more of their running game, because you have, on the other side for the Jets, you have Aaron Rodgers. And yes, you mentioned the name Aaron Rodgers, but this isn't 2010, 11, 12 Aaron Rodgers. This is 2024 Aaron Rodgers, okay? The dude is 40. I saw a stat, I think, earlier this morning where in 12 of his 17 games before last season, obviously as a member of the Packers, I seen his line at 236.5 passing yards. He's gone under that in 12, 17 games. Now, obviously, you can't count the one game where he last played last year where it was the snap, but you also got to take into account there, he's coming off an Achilles injury. And the last time we just saw a guy coming off an Achilles injury, how did Kirk Cousins do yesterday? It didn't look good, but I still think that this, game is going to be close. I think it's going to be a lot more ground game. I'm a big fan of Breece Hall tonight. I'm sprinkling his anytime TD, but I think it's going to be more of a ground game. Obviously, I think the Jets do cover here. I think with this trend here, the Niners, I think with just how this offseason played out, and you look at the Jets, right? I think if this is any year for the Jets, it's got to be this year. They have addressed the offensive line. They have one of the best running backs in football. Arguably, you can say he could be a top 3 fantasy pick of all time right now. You can see the receivers, right? They have depth at the receiver position. The defense has always been good. We saw it last year, saw it the year before. Comes into its 3rd year, obviously under Robert Saleh, who has a lot of pressure. I think the Jets make this close. Obviously, a lot of people think that as well. I do like the Jets money line as a sprinkle play, but I'm not the most confident in that. I'm just more confident in the fact that the Jets make this a close game, because obviously the Niners 0-6 in their last 6 home games, like ATS. Don't really like that right now, especially against AFC teams. Obviously, they lost outright at home, whether it was Baltimore or Cincy. But obviously, I don't want to take them. It's a new team, obviously, new season. I think the Jets just make this. I think they make this one interesting. I think that they can make this potentially a 3-point game. I'm hoping that they can potentially win this game. I know a lot of people are on that. That's why a lot of people want to take the Niners -3 or -3.5 to play it safe. But my one play today. I think the Jets make this game fun. I think they cover here. I got it at +5.5, but I would take it all the way down to here, +4.5. I think I know the line right now on like most books is around +4, so I maybe just buy it up a half point, get 4.5. I think they can make this game interesting, a lot of fun on this Monday night. And I also saw that Aaron Rodgers on Monday night. Look, he's a good profitable system as well. I think he's 24-11 ATS all time. I don't think he, especially in week 1, I think that he can make this game interesting, especially going to San Fran. And obviously we know the history between Aaron Rodgers and San Francisco. He knows how to beat the Niners, whether it's the Packers or with this new team with the Jets. We'll see. But I think he makes this interesting. This is not a homer pick because I'm a Seahawks fan. I think they make this interesting. So I'm digging the Jets here, +4.5. That's my one and only pick for tonight. Ari, we got Monday Night Football, Jets Niners. What are you going with tonight?
Yeah, you touched on it. Just going with the classic first half under. Obviously, there's question marks on both sides. Like you said, Rodgers coming off the Achilles injury. The Niners expected to be limited Brandon Ayuk because he basically held out all of training camp. And then I
think you want to edit that says Korea Saturday's best bets.
Oh,
so first of all, I will say I actually am on that first half under as well. I'll let Ari allude to it in a little bit, but as Ari was pretty much about to mention, just both teams, with some question marks and as well, with the ground game as well. But Ari, I'll let you get back into why you on the Jets Niners first half under 20.5.
Yeah. Okay. I added that. Thank you for the catch. But yeah, I mean, there's question marks on both sides, especially I think I'm sticking, like I like the full game too, but I'm sticking to the first half just because I think it's going to be more of a kind of a feeling each other, feeling each other out in the first half with obviously Rodgers coming off the injury, the Niners having all the controversy all offseason with, all the holdouts and contract situations. And I know Ayuk's going to be limited according to reports. Trent Williams, I'm not sure if he's going to be like full going out into the line. But I agree that I think they're going to be more of a emphasis on the run game for both teams early, especially early in the game. And then I think we could see more points in the second half. So I still like the full game under, but I'm just a little bit more confident in the first half. I'd love it more at 21.5 to have that cushion for the 3 touchdowns and all that. But I'll take it at 20.5, just hoping for like a 13-6, 13-7. I don't think it's gonna like soar under. I don't think it's gonna be like 6-3 or something. But I think we're gonna just be able to go under this line of 20.5. In some form or fashion with the running game going for both teams and new situations for. All right, so not new situations, but for the Niners, the holdouts all offseason, the Jets, Rodgers coming off his injury, so I think it's going to be a slow start in the first half, and I like the first half under 20.5.
Yeah, you mentioned the whole Ayuk situation as well. I saw a report yesterday that John Lynch was pretty much saying it's either us or the Steelers, and that obviously causes a lot of strain, whether it's in just the organization, team members, whatnot. You mentioned Ayuk's going to be on a snap count. With how much he was holding out at this offseason, waiting for his deal or getting shipped off somewhere. And then he obviously got his deal. And, it takes a little bit of time to, get re-gelled back into this offense, obviously, even with some, adjustments at the offensive line as well, even though it's pretty much most of that same team that went all the way to the Super Bowl last year. You still have the same quarterback, same skill players alongside Ayuk as well. But obviously this is a bad matchup, I'd say, for the Niners. Obviously, we looked at last year. The Niners played a really good defensive team in Baltimore. They came in last year and they obviously their defense played out. And I think that this same Jets defense can do the same. We know the Jets defensive line can force pressure, obviously hurried throws, and obviously guys like Sauce Gardner are waiting in the secondary for you. So I think this first half under as well is a good play for you. Obviously, you mentioned you wanted to get it, a little bit more juice at 21.5, but I think this, with 2 good defenses as well. You mentioned, the offense is probably depending on their running games, with arguably 2 of the top 3 running backs in football on each squad. I think that, that pretty much prevalent, gives us a chance for that under as well, with, using a lot more of that clock, draining that clock out, just hopefully, this first half under as well, -1 away. I think it's a good look for you. We're not hoping for 3 touchdowns here. We just need, maybe some 3-and-outs here, maybe a stalled drive here and there, maybe
there could be some turnovers too with both defenses.
Exactly. I'm about to say turnover would help, and obviously not a turnover in their field. I've seen a lot of those. I've seen a lot of those this weekend, Titans. But yeah, I do love the Jets Niners first half under -20.5 here. I think that's a great look for you. I think that these first half under 20.5. I think it's a good look. You're backing both defenses essentially, in this spot, and both offenses. I think they get a slow start. Obviously, Rodgers coming off the Achilles. All of the Niners with, the holdouts, the skill positions. You mentioned Trent Williams probably not being on a snap count as well, and that's fair. But still, he was on a holdout as well. So, it's not going to be a quick, just fix for him to be back into that Niners offensive line group. So I do like that first half under for you. First half under 20.5. That's always one play today. Mine, the Jets covering that full game spread. I had it at 5.5 a few days ago. I know that's crept all the way down to 4 on most books, but I'd buy it up a half a point to get it at 4.5 there at -116ish or maybe 120ish range. Obviously, you can find both of these and this video on our card below, AKP Sports Talk. We will have our full card for tonight's Monday Night Football game, the debut Monday Night Football for this 2024 season. We'll have that card post momentarily on our Twitter below, of course. That's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's RM Korea. Obviously, with our new schedule, we'll be back on Thursday, so in a couple days, to preview Thursday Night Football between the Bills and Dolphins. Finally, we have a good Thursday night football game to start the season. I'm actually really excited for this. Obviously, we have our full cards posted momentarily for that. And then obviously heading into this weekend, another weekend of football, obviously college football Saturday, NFL Sunday. We'll have our cards for that and all of that on Friday. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys on Thursday for some Thursday night football.